Joining us now is Jane Mayer. She's a staff writer for The New Yorker magazine. She's author of the best-selling book, The Dark Side, the inside story of how the war on terror turned into a war on American ideals. Jane Mayer, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Glad to be with you.
We are trying to figure out the role of Vice President Cheney's office here, in part, on the torture issue, the lead up to the invasion of Iraq. From your reporting, what can you tell us about what sort of interest Cheney took personally in the intelligence that was gleaned from these interrogations?
Well, I mean, I think we're beginning to learn more and more about this. He is described in my book by the #2 person in the Justice Department, James Comey, as having become obsessive, basically, after 9/11 with the threat of terrorism. And you can see it more and more, really. I mean, he's been speaking out so often. He's becoming the face and the defense for these programs, really. And he was, I think, if you look at it carefully, many of the sort of fingerprints go back to his office, and we're beginning to sort of, connect those dots now.
And he was going through raw intelligence at this time in terms of the lead-up, post 9/11, pre-invasion of Iraq. He was not only getting briefed or receiving the same kind of information the president was getting, he was also going through the raw materials, wasn't he?
Well, what happened after 9/11 was he was dissatisfied with the kind of information that had been given to them from the CIA. And so they demanded just every single piece of scrap of information about threats that might be coming towards the United States. And they, and at his direction, they took away the filter that the CIA had, where previously, before 9/11, the president, vice president, people who are not intelligence experts, had only been told about things that were really possibly important. After 9/11, they saw everything. It was called the Threat Matrix Report. It was this extensive thing. They started every morning. Cheney started every morning with the Matrix Report and then went through it all again sitting down with the president. So he did it twice every day. And it was described to me by some of the more expert intelligence officials, Roger Cressy, who worked in the NSC, as filled with garbage. Just completely alarming stuff that would just make anybody lose their judgment. Somebody else described it to me as like being locked into a room with Led Zeppelin playing. I mean, you just would lose your mind looking at this stuff. And they started it every day looking at these things. So that was kind of the mindset they were in. Then, there were reports of Cheney going over to the CIA and personally taking a great involvement in the issue. There were reports that he had a reading room set aside for himself over there. Not all the details are out. I don't know whether or not, how many times he went over there. There are a number of people who say he was there a lot and pushing so hard on this front.
Jane, I know that we haven't seen it yet, but we know that in 2004, the CIA Inspector General came out with a report that everybody describes as quite damning on the enhanced interrogation program. The report is still classified. It's expected it might get released at some point sometime soon. Do you know how Cheney reacted when that report was first issued in 2004?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is another example where you see Cheney in action. Basically, when that report came out, it was a secret report. It was given to just a few people, but all hell broke loose inside the sort of the top ranks of the government, because basically the Inspector General of the CIA, who's the watchdog, was saying this program is criminal. All kinds of lines have been crossed in the KSM interrogation, among others. And Cheney was apparently incredibly incensed, and he asked to have the independent watchdog of the CIA come to his office for a private chat. What happened in that chat, we still don't really know, but just the fact that the vice president, who doesn't usually have a role in intelligence matters, was calling the Inspector General of the CIA in to basically, I think, call him on the carpet, saying to defend these interrogation programs, is really unusual. I spoke to one of the other Inspector Generals at the CIA just to check this with him. I called Fred Hitz and I said, when you were Inspector General at the CIA, did you hear from the Vice President? Did they ever call you into their office over there in the White House? And he said, no. I mean, it's incredibly unusual. This is really strange. So, again, you sort of see how involved Cheney was.
What's emerging is just this portrait of Cheney being involved in not only everyday matters, but in just the incredible minutia of everyday matters, which I think depending on what happens in terms of accountability, I think will be a really important contextual thing to know in terms of just how involved and engaged and directive he was about things going on with intelligence. Jane Mayer, author of the best-selling... Sorry, go ahead. Let me allow you to respond to that.
I was going to say, a lot of this is still not really known. It's hard to see because there's been a great report done by the Senate Armed Services Committee. We know a lot about what happened in the Pentagon. What happened with the CIA and the relationship with Cheney's office is still not known. I think it's one of the reasons why there's really got to be more kind of independent inquiry into this thing, where there's a lot we still don't know.
Jane Mayer, author of the best-selling book, The Dark Side, thank you so much for your time tonight. I look forward to your continued reporting on the subject, Jane. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Great to be with you.